Hey everybody. Hi. I just posted on Twitter how I didn't want to do that. Jeez. Anyway, hello, it's Dead Poetics or Connor, however you want to call me. And I know we haven't talked in a while, and I know I've been offline for a while. So, offline, sort of, for those of you who know me on Twitter and Discord and Twitch occasionally, and I'm around Instagram, but I haven't been like around. I've been streaming, I haven't been creating any content for a couple of months easily. And I think I've told you about this before because, for one thing, end of November, came down with COVID then, and then Christmas we were traveling, and then January started to get ramped up at work and really stressful, and then February I started the play, and at that point I just made the decision that I'm not even going to try streaming. There was some stuff going on in the community anyway, and some changes going on with the team and all that kind of stuff, so I figured we'll just start fresh later. And so I picked the tentative date of May 1st. I had picked April, or end of April, because the play was now done as of last week, so I thought, then maybe I'll just start up again. And that didn't happen. Or I knew it wouldn't happen. So in my infinite brilliance, which no, it's fairly finite, is I put in some days off a while ago now for the week after the play, so this week, which we're just finishing up now, to make sure that I can kind of get myself back in order and kind of back on track, sleep a bit, catch up, work out, eat right, that kind of thing. So I've been doing that, knock on wood. And so this is Thursday. I don't even know what day it is. It must be Thursday the 14th of April. So we're entering the middle of April. So next week I think I'm going to need to go back into the office officially. So that'll be a thing. Take back over all the work that I had handed off while I was gone. And then I'm on call as of April 30th for that weekend. But then back to kind of the regular role of things. So I'm hoping to come back sometime in May, early May. So just expect to see me in May. We've got the same lineup just to take it real nice and easy, nothing too fancy. But I am hoping to bring the workout streams back because that's been on my mind and been kind of important to me as my hair goes crazy. I haven't taken a shower yet. I've worked out, I've had coffee, I have my coffee right here. Had breakfast, had my vitamins, all that kind of stuff. And so it's not noon yet, so I'm okay. But to try and get back into both the vids on YouTube, because we still have the Skyrim series that I'm still fledgling with, which I'm still interested in. I don't have any problem with keeping it going because I like the character. Might change them up a little bit as far as just the look of them goes, but that's about it. But see where the world is. It's been shit's happened since I last talked to you guys. So it's been kind of a thing. I've also made some fairly heavy realizations on my end as well, about things I've been struggling with for years, and I don't know why, and now I kind of get it. And it's stuff that I don't think that even the research was available or even anybody talked about it. And I finally stumbled upon it, and it kind of made a lot of sense. Why going online for Twitch is easy, but playing with friends in an MMO isn't. Things like that. There's a reason for that. We can talk about that. Not that I'm going to turn my stream into some sort of mental health bastion of security, but I can at least explain it from my extent, and then get back into writing and all that kind of stuff. So, basic goals coming into the spring, because spring and summer usually we slow down at work a little bit. I'm hoping that happens, and so we can focus a little bit more on the other things that are important, which is streaming, which is camping, which is fishing, and bring you guys along with that, because that's what makes it fun and I like to be able to do stuff and create content. I like being in front of a camera. I do. Also, this play introduced a character, or the part that I played is one of the few parts. I got a couple of compliments, and I don't usually take compliments. Um, but one of the things that I heard from several good friends of mine who have seen me act for years and years is that the role that I played was one that was almost written for me. Um, and that's not something to be taken lightly. Um, so usually when I go on stage, I'm somebody else. And to have a character like that I really clicked with, means, for one, I don't know if I'll be going back to acting anytime soon. Definitely a big break, um, just because it is such a disruption. But also, two, is to consider this role, see if I can use it somehow. I'll explain more as I get into streams and start thinking about it and talking about it. But basically, the play, in essence, was a sort of a commentary on the actor John Barrymore from the 20s and 30s. Essentially, he died in the 40s, and that was the character I played. And so I got to kind of learn about that actor and his role in becoming one of the greatest Shakespearean actors in American history. So he's thought. And for those of you that know anything about me, my wife and I met doing Shakespeare in the Park here in town. And I did Shakespeare in the Park there for over a decade, I want to say. And then we had to move it to a different venue, or move theater in general to different venues. But that's what I started off as. I have been in many Shakespeare plays with the same company, but still doing Shakespeare. So that had a special sort of indication to me. I've never been in Hamlet. I have no desire to be in Hamlet. But I respect it as a play. So there's a connection there. And I thought it was interesting. And the perspective on acting and presentation is something I can bring to streaming. What I've not necessarily learned from that role, but what has emphasized what are my strengths. Being dramatic, being well-spoken, acting. And I don't mean acting as in putting a persona, but as in performing actions. Using your hand gestures, your facial expressions. That's all stuff that we don't talk about enough, unless you're using your medium for something beyond, playing, another 4 hours of Elden Ring, something like that. And even then, some of the people that I watch that I don't watch much Elden Ring. It strikes me as being it's Skyrim for Dark Souls. But I know that's being a little bit unfair. But the ones that I have watched recently, even though there's no webcam there's a vocal quality that I've always appreciated, and that's something that I've always thought is important. I don't know if it'll be any good, but it doesn't matter. One of my friends, long time ago, stopped talking to me for whatever reason, ages ago, as artistic, poetical types tend to do, is telling me that some of the best poets you'll ever see or read are never published. Some of the best streamers you'll ever see are not partnered. Some of the best YouTubers that are out there creating content that actually blows your mind are not popular. That's the nature of the game right now. I mean, we're in an age where everybody wants to be seen, myself included, and the audience to consume it is more and more critical of what it consumes. And if we compare that to other parts of history where we have a medium that takes over, an outlet, a channel, whatever you want to call it, be it baseball cards, poetry, theater, movies, anything that starts to becoming just saturated, you start to develop a series of tiers of quality versus quantity, right? And so we have the stuff that just gets used as kind of icing for the masses, and then we have those particular pieces that we search for and we look for. I think we're kind of there now. So it would be one of those things to keep in mind, that it's now art for art's sake. You may not become a partnered streamer. You may not become. I may never become a partnered streamer. I don't know if I would even matter at this point. I'm in a position in my life where I'm more comfortable than most streamers who are partnered. What does that mean? It means I'm not doing it for my living. We don't have to. And so curating and catering to that and treating a stream as sort of an art form, or at least taking it seriously. I was talking with my wife about this too, like even with acting, is it's not so much of art for art's sake, which is unfair. And it's not so much playing to an audience, as in pandering. It's not that either. But, we were talking about how, I wish I just knew I was any good. And of course, when somebody asks you that, you tell them, well, yeah, of course you're good, based on my biased opinion. And how do you know whether or not you're good or not? Well, certain mediums lend themselves to critique and gradation. What gradation is that? What that's grading a hill. Never mind. What I mean is of a certain levels and tiers of quality, and acting does for sure, because we see other actors and we watch other actors, and there's a thing there where it's interactive, and that's how acting works. It has to be interactive, because otherwise, if you're acting to nobody, then you're never going to get that feedback, because that's how that works. Then you would never know. Writing is different. Writing, you don't get to be there when it's consumed. Writing, you don't get to see the ultimate goal. You may become great after you're dead, and that's where you have to write and create in a vacuum and be comfortable with that, knowing to a point where almost like you're sort of like some sort of Jedi, where you just get to the point where you can feel the Force. That's not necessarily what I mean, but it's more of like a feeling of, I know what I can do, I've worked on what I can work on, and I know what a good piece of writing to me looks like based on what I've read and based on what I've done and the feedback I've gotten from the very small audience that I've hit. Streaming is very much a competitive. We compare ourselves against other streamers by statistics, by now the viewer stat thing, which is going away, by follower count, by subscriber count. But we also have to understand what our audience is as well, and our audience can shift overnight depending on what we're doing, what our games are, or what have you. And I think there is a place there where, how do you know if you're any good or not, is whether or not you are, in terms of acting, and this is going back to my conversation my wife and I had, is are you taking on roles for one? I'm not. I've been kind of lucky with a little theater company where I just kind of work with them, and they pick out the role, which is very easy. But then the next step would be auditioning. And then the next step would be auditioning for roles that you don't think you can do. Putting yourself into spaces where those are muscles that you're not used to using, and to continue on with sort of that bodybuilding metaphor, that's how you can prove whether or not you're quote unquote good, is to identify your strengths, identify your weaknesses, either work on your weaknesses or build your strengths, and then kind of specify your build, for lack of a better term. And there were a couple of lines in this last one with this character where I felt like I grew. I actually felt like I got it, like I had it. And that's a feeling of that, knowing that you're doing the best you can possibly do. That's good. And I think streaming is something we don't do that enough. What am I talking about, right? How many followers do I have? Well, I have about 700 followers or so. I've been doing this for about 5 years. And I've run with some of the best and some of the worst. And what I've seen from streamers that I've seen, I don't typically watch a lot of the big names, because I don't see anything out of there that's anything new, that's growing anything, that's doing anything different. The ones that I do watch that are different are very, very different. And I think there's something to be said there to curating a craft, and what goes into being a good streamer and being a good creating sort of that art is, I think, still a mystery. But there's also, too, it's a completely commodified art form. Completely commodified. I mean, we are a packaged Twinkie in streaming form. We do our viewer rewards, and we have our events, and we have all these doodads and glitzy little things to make sure our audience is entertained, or if anything, just distracted enough to stay there. And does that have anything to do with us, or are we simply making a carnival? And where do we cut the point of saying, like, I don't want to be a carnival, I want to be a theater? Right? Can you be both? Of course. But then you're in that continuum. Where do you want to fall? And I don't want to fall on the line of this of the carnival. That's not fun for me. I prefer more of the theater because I know I can do it. So what does that mean, though? Well, it means that every time you get on camera, create those points of note, of interest, of allowing the audience to hear you say that moment or take that moment in stride and express it. And I don't even know if I know how you would possibly do that. But it's one of those things that I think of whenever I'm on stream. Try to, anyway, unless I'm having a off day. Even with the workout streams are simply to have camera time in a format that is completely uncomfortable what I should think I can do. And I'm doing it because it's camera time. So if that's one of those things that puts us up in the markers, well, why not? It's also just a different thing completely. It has nothing to do with gaming. It has nothing to do with chatting. It has nothing to do with doing some sort of lottery. So it's a completely different sort of thing to challenge, and then requires me to watch other streamers that do similar stuff, YouTubers as well. I don't know. So that's what I've been thinking about. It's a lot to think about, and of course you can overly intimidate yourself doing that. And I think a lot of us too, streamers, content creators, and I use that in a very narrow focus because it's mostly social media related streaming things. This is beyond those who are creating mini movies and uploading them, or are actually making long crafted works. I mean, that's different. That's not the same thing. I'm speaking more to those who are more performance artists, which would be us, that get in front of a camera. We don't have a script, or if we do have a script, it's nothing really advanced, and we try to have a variety show in whatever format that takes, and that's different. That's tougher, but that's fun, and that's also easier, a lot less time consuming, because that's the other problem too, isn't it? Time consumption. All this stuff we have to do outside of our regular lives, and depending on what you're doing, I'm obviously working a full-time job, I have a family, and trying to have a social life, and then trying to stream on top of that. It's a hobby, it's a labor of love, and so it can't be a whole lot more than that unless I have the time to do that. That's where I started working a little bit more on the YouTube content. And this is going longer than I intended to, so sorry. Because even I don't do fancy YouTube content, but I can have a beginning and an ending and a middle, and I know where I want to go. And I can do that in a stretch. It's not great, I'm not going to win any awards by it, but it is a different thing from just starting the camera up and waiting for the first person to come into chat that I can harass. And it's all of these different things there. So I don't know. But still, it's, lack of a better term, is what I want to come back to. So we'll see how this next year goes. It's not like coming back from other times. That's for sure. The ground's shifted. The world's changed and is continuing to change. People don't have the same ideas and mindsets that they did 4 years ago. I mean, it's scary. I mean, we don't know where we're going to be in 4 years, 2 years. But that's where creating is important. If anything, just to create it for its own sake, to have it as a record, to produce things, even if it doesn't necessarily relate to everything that's coming on and going on outside our world. And outside our worlds, yeah, right? Hell, I don't even go outside that often. I think one of my only goals today is to actually walk outside for the first time in months, even though it's snowing. But I've recreated this space. You can see behind me, it's a lot more open. You can see a lot more of my background. I mean, you now can see the whole basement. I started off just using a green screen and then slowly showing more and more. Now, most of it you've seen. Most of this is a performance space, but a performance space that isn't, right? And then when I finally do decide to go back to work, it'll mostly be hybrid. So it'll be 3 days there and then 2 days home, but that means this space here will be more devoted to just me. So that's a different thing too. I don't know. Where will we be? Find out. Anyway, the whole reason I was doing this is because you guys have not had an update in a while about where I am and what I'm doing, and here I am. And I still have the sex torture machine of doom. It's not. It's a sliding bench trainer. It's a wider ultimate body works. There's bands on the wall. I don't know if you can see them, but if I turn a little bit this way, I've got all the resistance bands that I use, and I've got my rower there, and that's all full of NA beer and all the stuff you see in the background there, and one of my play posters and stuff like that. That one's actually from Romeo and Juliet. That's the one. That's the play where I met my wife. So that's on my wall. And we'll get back into it, I guess. I don't know. Do you wanna? Why don't we? We'll go together. We'll figure out what this is all about. And who knows? We'll see what we'll find. Anyway, this has been Dead Poetics, formerly known as Dead Linux. I'm still here, and we'll see you all beginning of May. Bye.